All right, guys. We got a good show every day. We have Brandon Easterling. He goes to Dayton. Thanks for coming on, man.
Hey, I appreciate you having me on. I kind of checked out what you guys got going on, and it seems like you're doing the right thing. So it's an honor. Thank you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. We're just getting started on it, getting some NFL, different people starting to take notice. I'm from Ohio. I remember I've watched you play. I've went to a game, and I've always wanted to have you on. I mean, we've been trying to get this on for a while, so I really do appreciate you coming on. I saw you from the Ohio area. I have to ask, what made you pick Dayton going out of high school?
Yeah. This is a question I get asked pretty frequently.
Yeah.
The thing for me is, out of high school, I knew I wanted to play at the highest level possible, with that being Division 1.
Mhm.
And so I was one of those guys that was kind of getting attention, Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, JUCO, whatever it may be. I was getting looks from just about every level. But I kind of narrowed it down to the Division 1 schools that I had opportunities to go to, and I had some preferred walk-ons to some FBS schools. But just kind of talking to my family and stuff, I decided I really wanted to go where I was really wanted.
Mhm.
Not that walk-ons aren't really wanted, but
Yeah.
it's a little different when you're getting a walk-on spot compared to an actual offer.
No, yeah, for
So I just kind of traveled around, did a few visits, and really what got me is when I went on my official to Dayton. Just meeting the people, meeting what the program was about, kind of sold me. And it's funny because me being so close to Dayton growing up, I had never been on campus before, and when
sure.
I stepped foot on campus, it was a good feel, man. And from there, it was just kind of history.
Yeah, no, I get that 100%. For me, it was like Alabama. I would have been walk on for 2 years, and then I probably would have got a scholarship third year. But like they were like, you're just gonna practice, and like where it's like you go to like an FCS school, like I'm doing now. Like I'm a
Hmm.
player, I'm gonna play week 1. You know what I mean? It's like they care
Hmm.
about you a little bit more. It's not like this big program. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was like Rutgers and OU that offered you PWS.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
did you kind of get that same kind of gist as what I was kind of talking about myself?
Absolutely, man. And that's what it's a once again, I'm never knocking a walk on. It's just that's a great route if it's an opportunity somebody wants to take, absolutely. But that's
Yeah.
kind of what you're saying, man. I really just wanted to go somewhere where I knew I was really wanted. So
Yeah. So like during that time, when you were looking at schools, did you really look at like the team or the system they run, or that not really, ever occur to you?
um yes and no. I wouldn't necessarily look at the system they run. For one reason, because a lot of the schools that were recruiting me, it seemed like there was a different position that they kind of wanted me at. I know one school wanted me at a running back, a few schools wanted me at wide receiver, a few schools wanted me at DB.
Yeah.
And so I kind of started to understand that, um, I don't have one set position that I'm getting looked at. So I could, change at any time. But I did look at like the roster and stuff like that. And that's something I'd probably advise anybody to do, just because you want an idea of like what you're going into. And like, so if you're narrowing down schools, and
Mhm.
myself, I had a goal that I wanted to play freshman year wherever I went. And, with a goal like that, if you go to a program with, a safety room that has 10 kids in it, I mean, compared to five maybe or six, with upperclassmen or not upperclassmen, those things kind of affect that decision a bit. So yeah, yes and no, but that definitely wasn't what kind of drove me to choose Dayton.
Yeah. All right. I kind of want to, get in a little bit about one of your teammates first, then I'll get back into like, season.
Yep.
Adam Troutman, he got selected the Saints in the third round.
Hmm.
I want to ask what what that meant for a player getting drafted to Dayton. And then also I'm interested, because you play linebacker. Did that help you think with any of the scouting for the draft? Because scouts were there to see him, but they also were like, oh, look at this guy.
Yeah. So to answer your first question about Adam, I mean, I can't say enough about the dude. I still talk to him. I still
Yeah.
ask him for advice just because he's been through it. And for somebody like that at a small school to make it is huge, just because, for one, it's a morale booster for everybody
Yeah.
else on the team. It's like, hey, this guy showed he can do it. So, I
Mhm.
mean, hell, why can't we do it?
Yeah.
And then for two, it brought attention to Dayton. He's definitely putting us on the map.
Yeah.
More eyes on us, the more the merrier. And as far as, the playing time that I was getting while playing with him and stuff, playing the multiple different positions that I have on defense so far, I think that did help. And I know, for example, during practice, at any time, any given time that I could get a competitive rep against him, I knew I was taking it, and I was all for it because I understood that there's going to be eyes
Yeah.
watching that rep, and if I could get some success against him, that definitely would bring some attention to me. And you want to compete against the best too at the same time. So not even just trying to get eyes on me, but you just want to get better.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, man. I mean, having a guy like Adam that's big time. He's done more for our program, more for myself than I could even say the
Yeah.
words could put. So
No, man, for real. I mean, it could just because I'm from Ohio, but like when I started getting notice of like, watching Adam play, I started seeing you, started getting a little
mhm,
bit more invested in like watching Dayton football than I ever had been. You know what I mean?
that's awesome.
It was something like that. You know, this one's kind of tough because, with everything like, shut down during COVID, some teams got to play. You guys didn't play in 2020. Um,
Yeah,
I have this one's a little bit of a longer question. So, with everything shut down, I was going to ask you what you did during that time, but also with no 2020 season, how do how are you staying ready, and everything?
this is one that I think I'm still trying to figure out in ways. It's been tough. I don't have any positive feelings towards us not playing what's happened this past year, nor do I think anybody does. Um, but when COVID hit, I mean, it was really kind of one of those things that we just sat down and we talked as a team, and I just talked to my friends, and it was all about just controlling what you can control. And we can't control what happened with COVID, and we can't control that UD decided not to play. And although we had our feelings about it, and we necessarily didn't agree with everything, it was what it was, and we were just going to roll with the punches. Um, and I'll be honest with you, in terms of staying ready to play, I think us not playing, and
Hmm.
I think this past year has caused myself and my entire team to be more hungry than ever, just because we've all grown up playing football since we were about 6 or 7,
Yeah.
and this is the first full year that we've went without actually playing. And so, man, it's been frustrating, and I can tell you, week 1 when we play Robert Morris, I mean, it's gonna be a mean, nasty
Yeah.
football team out there, just because we're not gonna be happy people, just because we got a point to prove. It's been so long, but yeah, it was just all about staying on top of the workouts, picking each other up, staying on your teammates.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of meetings, a lot of workouts, a lot of practices. We've just kind of been tuning things up as a team, and for myself as well, just trying to kind of tune everything up and really take advantage of what I can. So it's
Yeah.
been tough, but I've been trying to utilize it and maximize it as much as possible.
No, yeah.
So,
I can share with you a guy who comes on the show and helps out quite a bit. He plays for Portland State, Davis Alexander. I don't know if you've heard of him.
okay.
But he was like fifth, sixth round grade, and he was like talking. And he's like, I haven't played football in like a year and a half. He's pissed
Yeah.
off because he's like, I went from like fifth round grade in the draft. He's like to where my name's not even mentioned. You know,
Yep.
so he's like, he was telling me, he's like, this season I'm gonna be like, it's going to be something different. I mean, I kind of got that same
Yeah.
vibe from you when you were talking about this. It was,
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's what I was in a similar situation. I had a draft stock, whatever you want to call it.
yeah,
It's kind of similar to that. And I've noticed with all these awards coming out and stuff, I'm not being thrown on the list. My quarterback's not being thrown on any of these lists. My running back and that stuff. It's just like what your friend is saying. That stuff is fuel to the fire, man. And we're gonna be out there for some vengeance. So
yeah. I correct me if I'm wrong on this, but so when you decided not to declare for the 2021 draft, right?
mhm.
You know, you said like, why do you think it was necessary to come back? And my friend, he was getting recruited from Dayton as a kicker back in the day. Dayton doesn't give scholarships, right, for football?
Correct. Correct.
So,
Correct.
that's a big financial on you. So why do you think it was necessary to come back?
Yeah, so I think to start off with the whole non-scholarship thing, I think that was a really big reason why a lot of our guys, I think, were potentially more upset than maybe a scholarship program, because with our season being canceled, with UD
Yeah.
deciding not to play, the reason is because um, we then had to make a big financial decision, like you're saying, to
Yeah.
figure out, like, are we really want to do this or not? And for me, I mean, it was a no-brainer. I was gonna do whatever I could to make it
Yeah.
happen. Um, But with that being said, deciding to come back, so kind of jumping back, I just talked a little bit about the draft stock. So
Yeah.
I had been told, with the agents that I was working with and the scouts that I've been kind of in contact with, that I had a lower draft grade.
Yeah.
I think it was after my junior season. I think it was at best, it was about like a seventh, maybe sixth round, but probably
Yeah.
like an undrafted free agent, something like that. And with that, I just want to come back and get another year of film. I was told that I needed another year of film, and I was actually kind of, once again, reflecting back to Adam, was, kind of doing similar to what he did. I remember after his true senior year, he was told he needed another year of film, and he came back for a fifth year,
Third round, great.
crushed it. And yeah, I mean, that brought him all the way up to the third round. And honestly, I think he had every bit of the shot to go second round. So, kind of mix of trying to follow in his footsteps, as well as just kind of listening to the sources that I was, getting as far as, where I was sitting on teams rosters and stuff like that. So
No.
it's just essentially, it was all about just trying to improve the draft stock and just,
Yeah. No, for sure.
get
I
up.
get that 100%.
Yep.
It's unfortunate, but what we always say, because like a lot of these people, we all go through, COVID was really rough on a lot of people. It was like, things happen for a reason, it will work
Mhm.
out. This season now, we talked about Robert Morris, you're named a co-captain. What are you guys working on in practice, and, everything, what are trying,
Yeah.
goals for the season? I mean,
Yeah. So as far as goals for this season, first and foremost, we want to win the conference, the PFL,
yeah,
because that gives us an automatic, qualifier to the playoffs. So that's our first goal. Second goal right after that, I would say is shoot for a national championship. I mean, it's kind of silly in my opinion for somebody to not shoot for something like that,
yeah.
because then I think you're just selling yourself short.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as far as kind of what we're working on, I will say that going into last season, which would have been, before the season was canceled, what would have been my true senior year. Looking at our roster, we were young in a
Yeah.
few spots. We were young at O line, young at receiver,
Was
and
quarterback a true freshman? Was he a freshman?
no, quarterback is returning. He's going to be a senior this year.
Okay.
Jack. He so
No,
he
I
and
thought he was
that
a
was
freshman year playing. That's what I was asking about.
I gotcha. Um, but yeah, we were young, and so I think the big thing that we've been working on with these practices is kind of like what I said a little bit ago, is just fine tuning things and trying to get on the same page with everything and just understand our playbook and all about us. We're not really focused on other teams right now as far as scouting reports and stuff. It's all
Yeah.
about understanding what we do and do that as well as we can. So
No. Yeah, it's awesome. I do think, it's a good chance. I mean, you got your offense is very good. Your defense is good. I mean, look at you talked about it, that you guys are all, juniors, seniors on the team.
yep,
And it's like, you learned how to play when you were a freshman, sophomore. Now you guys
yep,
are been there and done it.
exactly.
I want to get back into a little bit, earlier in your career, I talked about Dayton now. So how'd you personally get into football yourself?
Oh man, this is a trip down memory lane. So let's see. When I got into football, I started playing in second grade, and I don't remember this, but the story from my understanding is, so my first grade year, I went out for t-ball, baseball, whatever it was, and my coach, who I actually was just on the phone with yesterday for about an hour and a half, great guy.
Yeah.
His name's Dennis. He was my baseball coach, and I wasn't great, but I was really fast. And so
Yeah.
anytime I hit the ball, it was, I was running the bases. And he talked my parents into bringing me out for football that next year. They brought me out for football, and he was the coach for the Pee Wee team at the time. Him and another guy named Scott Lilly, and they brought me on.
Yeah.
And from there, it was kind of, I started off in my career just kind of outrunning people.
Yeah.
But then I actually started to understand what football was all about, and actually started to develop some skills with it. So I just fell in love with it, and
Yeah.
from there on, it was just kind of what it was.
No, that's cool, man. So when you talk about being like, in second grade and you start, did you look up to any like current or former players, growing up playing football?
Yeah, I think one guy that I always looked up to um, was Wes Welker.
Yeah.
Now, I would say it's the Honey Badger, but growing up it was Wes Welker, and the reason was because I mean, everybody knows Wes Welker was an undersized guy,
Yeah.
but he got it done. And kind of growing up, I wasn't necessarily the smallest kid on the team,
Yeah.
but when I started to hit like middle school-ish, high school, um, and there were some seasons where I was one of the smaller guys, and
Yeah.
it just he kind of showed me it could be done, so I followed his footsteps on that. And then with the Honey Badger, dude's just all over the field making plays, and that's what I think any great safety should do. So that's kind of who I'm striving to be at this point.
No, yeah, it's awesome. I think it's like a big thing is like when you're a little bit undersized or different things. Like I was undersized on myself. It gives you a little bit of chip on your shoulder. It's like,
Oh yeah,
what I mean? It's like it's sometimes like almost taking that little bit of a negative and making like a big positive because it gives you that.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So this one's always a funny one. So over the course of your career, this could be back in second grade or it could be now in college. What's the best play you think you ever made in football?
Best play I've ever made in football. Oh, man. Well, I can think of maybe two off the top of my head. The one this past season that I had my junior year, I had the 100-yard pick six against Drake.
Yeah.
I believe I tied the school record for longest interception return. So I thought that was a pretty cool one. And then in high school, we were playing Trotwood my senior year,
They're a good team.
and a very good team. I think that year they lost in the semifinals of the state playoffs, and we hadn't put up a point against them yet. They were beating us pretty good, and I think I made it was something like Max Preps play of the week.
Yeah.
But I had housed a 60-ish yard screen,
Yeah.
and I had broke a few dudes off, so it was a pretty coll play. But those two probably come to my mind, when you ask that question.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I don't think you can do quite better than a 100-yard TD.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, final two questions. We always finish off with them. So over the course of your career, what's the best piece of advice everyone's ever told you?
Best piece of advice. It's pretty cliche and it's something you hear a lot. But dream big. And I think that's something that I actually got. It's funny, I just got this tattoo on the inside of my bicep right here 2 days ago, and it says, "Why not me?"
Yeah.
And it's something I kind of came up that I live by. But it's similar to dream big. And another one that I like to tie into it is, be unrealistic. And all three of those kind of tie together, but it's essentially just for anybody coming up, man, you're going to have people that are always going to knock you, always going to find things wrong with you. But I think the first things first is you need to look at who's sending this message to you and realize, if they're even capable of doing what you're doing. But on top of that, nobody in this world knows you better than yourself.
Yeah.
And if you believe in yourself and you're shooting for the stars, even if you fall short, you're going to land on the moon. So, I mean, it's just kind of dream big, be unrealistic, and why not me? That's just kind of what I live by.
No, man, I 100% agree with that. The reason we always ask that one is because I bet you 55% of the audience is athletes, playing high school, college, middle school. And, a bunch of people are like, everyone's kind of gone through a little different journey, like we've talked about. And, everyone's got a little piece of advice. And, if we can learn something, we can learn from each other. Being athletes, we all can take something. So that always became a popular one. So that's why I always do that one. This one is probably the toughest one you're going to ask. So when your career is over down the line, right? How do you want people to remember yourself?
I want to be known as far as football, correct? That's what you're asking. As far as a football player or as a person?
As far as football player and then as a person, I mean, because, through a football people get a limelight on you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So start off as a person. I definitely want to be known as a leader. I want to be remembered as a leader. I want to be, kind of thought of as a guy that would do anything for his teammates. That's one thing I try and make very clear to my teammates. And we crack jokes and we, talk our trash and stuff on the football field, but I try and make it very clear that any and every one of my teammates at all times has free access to anything of mine. Man, I mean, I give my shirt off my back for any of my dudes. And I mean that wholeheartedly. And then as far as a player, I want to be remembered as just a tough, nasty competitor. I want people to, be able to talk about how they've never met somebody that's more willing to do things to win than myself. Because that's the name of the game for me, man. It's just, people can talk about how fast the guy was or how athletic. I want to be known as a dude that would do literally anything to win, and by anything I mean anything. So just competitor. That's what I want to be remembered as.
No, that's awesome. I've noticed that a lot. Brandon, I appreciate you coming on, man. Just giving athletes like you a voice, what we try to do here. Now we have the NIL bill passed for some of
Yes,
these guys.
sir.
We're gonna see more athletes, starting to get involved with this. I'm looking forward to it. So, I appreciate you coming on, man.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you guys having me. It was awesome.